Hey, everybody. I am Josh, and he is,
I am Chris.
and Chris, he is, and we together combine to make amazing fantasy football. Of course, that's why you're here. Today, we are here to talk about some rookie prospects for wide receivers and tight ends coming up for this Thursday's draft. The two of us, will be together in Chris's basement studio to do a live stream for the first round of the NFL draft. You can check us out on twitch.com right up there. I guess I should go right there.
I can't do it
And
right.
you're going off to the wrong side, but that's okay. They get the point. And if you're listening in podcast format, that is at twitch.tv/amazing fantasy football. And how you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm excited to talk about these receivers and tight ends. And
Sure.
the draft itself is less than a week away.
Yeah.
4 days.
I mean, we're looking at like 4 days, man. 4 days. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, 4 days. Anyways, I have an like real quick before we start. I have a thing that I feel like they should do. In parking ramps, I feel like instead of just going in perpendicular parking or at an angle, I think it should all be parallel parking. Parallel parking only in a ramp. I don't know how you work that out. It's not my job to figure it out. I'm not an engineer, but every parking ramp needs to be parallel parking.
Would that, I mean, I guess theoretically it'd take up the same amount of room because you'd have more room if it were a circular garage. But
I
also,
don't
isn't
know.
that just like asking for trouble? Because isn't parallel parking looked upon to be difficult? Or
No,
are we looking at
I'm the
so
world's
many
greatest parallel
cars will do it
parker.
for you now?
I'm the world's greatest parallel parker. Not like without a doubt. I can parallel park a Mack truck. I cannot park at all like regular perpendicular parking. I'm terrible at it. I'm
Oh, so this is
awful.
a selfish motivated reason.
Well, I figured if I can't be the only like good parallel parker, surely there's others out there that share this similar affliction that I do,
Affliction,
right?
skill. Yeah,
No.
I suppose so. But I think it skews the other way, quite frankly. And I think that's probably
Okay.
why we have
One of these days.
automated parallel parking cars nowadays.
If you ever see a parking ramp that is all parallel parking, you'll know I designed it.
Yep.
Anyway,
With your
let's
name
move
on
on
a
to
plaque on the front.
yeah, the Josh on
I used to be able to
Memorial
back a trailer,
parking
by
ramp.
the way. I would not say that's the case anymore. I feel like it's if you lose it if you don't use it, you lose it. It's not like riding
Yeah,
a bike.
no. Is there any real news to report in the NFL this week at all? I couldn't really find any. I thought
I feel like
maybe.
I should have looked closer, but no, definitely nothing comes to
I guess
mind.
the only thing is that the Chiefs gave up their first round
Right.
pick to acquire not Orlando Bloom but Orlando Brown from the Ravens. I swear to God, when I read that in the Discord, I was
Yeah,
like, Orlando, what?
I'd say he'd be severely out
Oh,
of position at left tackle. So we're a receiver build.
and I was thinking about it, and I was
He'd
just
fit in
like,
this
so
receiver
where the
class nicely, wouldn't he?
yeah. So I was thinking about it, and I was just like, so what would the Chiefs actually get with that pick, the 31st pick there? And I'm like,
Second to
maybe not,
last.
or like, yeah, you're swinging for the fences on maybe getting an offensive tackle there. I don't know. I mean, I guess I
I
don't hate it, but I
right.
don't love it either.
I think if you look at, so you have to give their personnel department probably the benefit of the doubt, right? Because they're a talented team. They must be doing something right in terms of drafting, free agency, trades, etc. So they looked at the, let's say off the top of our heads, probably fourth or fifth tackle off the board that could legit play left in the NFL, not right tackle, not a guard, converted guard or whatever. Um, and they said they're not as good as Orlando. So we're going to go and give up this draft capital because we're confident, you know, we're looking at a bottom 25 pick every year because we're that good of a team. So that's why they did it. That's why they made the move. And I think if it gets them another playoff run / Super Bowl, competing for another Super Bowl, it's a no-brainer. If it's for 1 year, great. If it's for 2, even better. If he can hold up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
All right, so let's get into the meat of the show here. Let's start with some wide receivers. Sound good, man?
Sounds great.
All right. So the first wide receiver we're going to cover here, I kind of wanted to just do it in like the order of potentially how they're gonna be drafted. Maybe they won't be drafted in this order, but if Jamar Chase doesn't get selected as the first wide receiver off the board, that would
I
really
quit.
surprise me. I think he's probably the best receiver in this draft. He did
Mhm.
opt out of this 2020 season, and like we discussed in last week's episode, we blame no one for wanting to do that whatsoever. It's a pandemic, folks. I don't blame him whatsoever for wanting to do that. But as we all know, he had a hell of a 2019 season.
Mhm.
He led all of college football with 24 deep catches that year. He was also one of the three LSU receivers that caught more than 10 touchdowns in 2019. Chris, do you know who the
Goodness.
other two are?
Well, one of them we will be talking about today,
Uh-huh.
and his name escapes me, and then the other one
Terrace
is
Marshall.
Terrence Marshall and Jordan Jefferson.
Terrace, not Terrence.
Terrace, no N, no N. I knew
Yep,
this.
yep, yep, yep.
Terrace Marshall and Jordan Jefferson.
Yep, Justin Jordan. But
Justin
yeah,
Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson, yes. Justin Jordan is the comic book writer.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I mean, he's so Jamar Chase has also got some good toughness to him. He broke 22 tackles in 2019. He's not the shiftiest wide receiver, and he has problems throwing cornerbacks off of coverage at times. So that is a downplay to him. I wish he was a little bit taller. He's listed as 6 foot, 201 pounds. So I kind of wish he was bigger, but he's got some leaps, so he's okay in some contested balls. And
Sure.
it's not like NFL corners are 6'4" anyways, or they usually aren't. So I guess, like he's gonna be I think he's gonna be good. I don't I don't want him to go to the Bengals mainly because I want the Bengals to take an offensive lineman. But pairing him back up again with Joe Burrow, it would be good. I mean, I'd rather him go there than to like the Carolina Panthers or something.
Detroit.
I would like him. No, that could be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Goff's not he's not a terrible quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He is, but he's probably not the Lions quarterback of the future. So,
That's a good point
whatever.
too. He wouldn't necessarily be married to him for a
But
10-year
yeah,
career
so
or
I mean,
something.
Jamar Chase, I think he's gonna be going in probably in the top 10 of the NFL draft. And I don't know how he would get outside the top 6 in a dynasty draft. What do you think about that?
I think you're dead on. I think I've had fallen in love with Chase to Cincy, because of fantasy and because it's just a cool story. But honestly, for fantasy and reality, of course, I think tackle is the way to go. I think when you're sitting there at where is it? There it is. When you're sitting there at 5, yeah, I think you have your choice probably of Pitts, Chase, or what's the tackle's
Penny
name?
Sewell.
Penei Sewell.
Hmm.
And that's a great position to be in. That's an amazing position to be in. I think you go the tackle. You get that left tackle there with your young
Hmm.
quarterback for 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
If the big guy can hold up, and you're done. You've got good enough receivers in house already that you'll be
And
fine in 2021, and then moving forward, you can address the wide receiver
and this
position.
this this draft is just deep enough in receiver
That too. Come back
that
around in round 2.
yeah, you can come back again in round 2, which I believe they have the Bengals that they have a pretty high second round pick as well.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I mean, you could even trade back maybe into the first round at the very end. Who knows? One thing I
That's
do want to
exactly
say
what I was
too is
about to
that
say. Hmm.
um, Jamar Chase, he didn't have a pretty small route tree when he in 2019 in college. So there's going to be maybe a bit of a learning curve with him when he gets to the NFL. It's not just going to be, and in the NFL, they don't ask you to just run straight routes and deep posts and all that stuff.
Right.
He did run a 4.39, unofficial, of course, unofficial, but so he's got speed. Like I said, he could have some better size, but getting 121 targets and getting over 1,700 yards and 20 touchdowns in college, like yeah, that's in 1 year too. That's 2019, which is mainly where all his production came from. So it's a small sample size, and I get why some teams might be nervous about that, and him taking a year off because of COVID. Some teams might be getting nervous because of that, but I don't think. Honestly, I think we're gonna have to get pretty far down on this list before we hit another receiver that I love just as much as Jamar Chase.
Well said. Well
So,
said. Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to besmirch Jalen Waddle or Devonta Smith, but I think Chase is an upgrade above those two guys. I think it's him and then those two
Agreed.
and then maybe another one. But yeah. So I mean, is it going to be an impact for like your dynasty roster right away? I'm guessing probably not. I mean, I hate to use this because we're going to use it a lot in this episode, but it kind of depends on landing spot.
Of course.
And
And we just projected him to
um,
elsewhere besides Cincy. So you lose that.
I mean, the Lions would be okay.
Yeah,
You
we
know,
did.
they're.
Yeah, you did touch on that. I'm a little more
I mean,
skeptical, but I don't hate it.
no, Goff's not a terrible quarterback. He needs to be more consistent. Is his
Miami
problem.
at 6.
That would be. I mean, I feel like he would have to really jump out to kind of get above Gesicki and Parker, who are veterans and have already kind of established themselves in that offense. But it's hard to say.
It'd be crazy
Let's
if he
move on to
falls. Go ahead.
let's
Yeah, let's
move
go
on
on the
to
next.
Jalen Waddle here. I want to keep moving.
You're good. You're
So
good.
let's keep rolling.
Like you said at the top of the show, we're doing this just in a rough order of what we're seeing. What's important to mention here is Waddle is ahead of Devonta Smith in today's show. That you could really flip flop it, but I have seen a lot of press about that lately, which is kind of baffling me because his production is very low. We'll get into that in a second. So he's 22 years old, 5'10", 182 pounds. This is Jalen Waddle, University of Alabama. 40 time. Again, we're dealing with a lot of unofficial times here. I've got a 4.37 on a pro day, unofficial. It's all about speed with this kid because his numbers are not that eye-popping. So you're drafting traits. Now, his numbers aren't eye-popping because injury and, of course, the caliber of player, in particular the receiver position he was playing with at Alabama. He had to share time with Devonta Smith and Henry Ruggs. Waddle's injury was a combination of a high ankle sprain and a fracture to his right ankle. That was back on 24th. It happened opening kickoff against Tennessee.
Yep.
So he should be all healed up, but it's just I wanted to get that in there because that's important to mention. And obviously impacted his numbers. I think it also has a ton to do with why Devonta Smith had such eye-popping stats in his final season. But still, I covered production a bit more here. So some pundits have Waddle ahead of Smith. I do not. In fact, we'll talk about another guy later that's moving up my board. I've heard him mocked to Philly as a Deshaun Jackson replacement. Personally, I'd rather have Smith or Chase. Maybe even, we won't get into that other name yet. So that's where I'm at with Waddle. I think he's still a first-round talent. Speed kills in the NFL, and he's got it. So that's the important thing to remember here. I worry he's a bit boomer bust. Deep ball kind of guy, low floor, high ceiling type of career. So yeah, I'm not in love with him, but if he could fall into a Tyreek Hill type of role, which is really only Tyreek Hill has in the NFL.
There's a guy on this list. There's a couple of guys on this list that could easily fall into that role. And
well said.
Which would be Tyreek Hill, not. I think you hit it more in the sense that Deshaun Jackson. Run fast straight, run fast deep, which is good. Like teams need that. They need someone to blow the roof off the house,
And
sort
Jackson
of thing.
had very lucrative fantasy careers. Like he wasn't I don't know whether to start him or not as this boomer bust guy we're talking about. That's in my book. That's I guess ceiling. That's his probably best outcome is a Deshaun Jackson.
Yep. All right, let's move on to his teammate Devonta Smith. I'm only doing that because I spelled his name wrong. I thought it was Devonte.
Is it Devonte? Devonte?
A
at the end. Thank you.
Okay, so I mean, he's a 6 foot, 170-pound dude. Like that's really, really skinny. I mean, he is skinny as a rail. Like think of all those pictures you saw of like Robbie Anderson when he came out of like in his like rookie or even sophomore season.
Good example. Yeah.
I think that he's got more to his game than Robbie Anderson and Devonta Smith. His biggest knock everywhere I read about him was that his size. Is he just going to get tossed around in the NFL? It's possible. Like he's real thin, but for a guy who, I'm sorry, I didn't even write down his 40 time. That's my bad. It's fast.
It's
Why
very
don't you
fast. Yeah.
why don't you look that up
I
for
am.
me
I
real
am.
quick, Wale? But I mean, he's got everything else. And I'm sorry, all of his knocks are related to his size in the sense that he got knocked around by bigger cornerbacks. He lacks strength, for blocking, gets jostled on the tops of his routes, lacks average play strength, etc. Blah 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 blah. But I mean, every other aspect of his game is great. He's got great hands, runs good routes. He's super fast, great body control, excellent tracking the ball while it's in the air. The list goes on and on and on and on. But yeah, it's just mainly about his size. But here's the thing, man. Over 1,800 yards this past season in a shortened year
Yeah, we thought
too. Like,
Chase's 2019 was amazing. Devonta Smith's.
yeah, 23 touchdowns. I mean,
Mhm.
in 2019, he put up 18.8 yards per catch.
Mhm.
It's just, and that was, and he had 117 receptions this past season.
It's
Like
insane to do in
and that is
college.
good for NFL. That is
Yeah, where you play
insane for college.
30% more games or something crazy like that.
Yeah, exactly.
His
So,
go ahead, sorry.
did you find his 40 time for
I
me?
did. Yeah, he
What
has
is it?
the fourth fastest. Apparently he did a combine or something. It says 2020 NFL scouting combine. Anyway, fourth fastest,
There was a
427.
combine this year.
Oh,
There
okay.
was a combine this year, but it was mainly the combine was mainly for checking people out from medical.
Medical.
It
They didn't
wasn't
broadcast it and stuff.
it wasn't necessarily like, their Olympic
Gotcha.
actions that they normally
So
go
his
through.
40
It was
was
mainly for medical physicals.
a 42740, fourth fastest in combine history.
4.27?
427.
4.27.
4.27. Yeah.
And that's the fourth fastest?
Mm-hmm. That's what it's saying.
Wow. Oh,
I'm not sure
snap.
about the reliability of
No,
the
it's cool.
article,
That's just
but
I was like, that's insanely fast, man.
since combine history
That's
since
insanely fast.
1999. That
Yeah.
doesn't tell me who though.
It's cool,
Anyway,
man. It's cool. It's cool.
yeah,
So
I'm
yeah,
going down a
I
rabbit
mean,
hole.
Devonte Smith, I like him way better than Waddle. I think that he should be the second receiver off the board. If he's not, there's a couple other guys that I do like in this draft that I don't think should go above him. But if they did, I'd be like, okay, that's I guess like they're a little bit beefier,
more of a
Um,
when you're drafting for a certain type. Like if your team, your
yeah.
offense
You're looking
wants
for
a bigger dude, yeah.
a guy to fit your offense, which, yeah, like I said, I mean, at 170 pounds, and I'm sorry, if he's really running we'll just call it a 4.3. We'll give a benefit of doubt. And we'll just say 4.3. Say he actually manages to pack on some muscle
Mhm.
and he loses a little bit of speed and now he's at a 4.35. That's still super fast. That's
And
still super fast.
if you can finish an NFL season, yeah, that'd
Yeah.
obviously be worth the trade off there.
Yeah, for sure. So that's about all I got on Smith here. Why don't we move on to your boy, Rondale Moore?
Waddle first.
We did Waddle already.
Oh, sorry. What?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we did Waddle before Devonta Smith. My apologies, folks. My boy Rondale Moore. We've already touched on it a couple times, but this is a theme. There's a lot of small receivers, a lot of gadget
Oh, yeah.
guys. This Rondale Moore encompasses all of that. In fact, in my opinion, you should think more of a Darren Sproles comp than any wide receiver that comes to mind. But his numbers
he's
are still
out
amazing.
of Penn State, right?
Purdue.
Purdue?
Rondale Moore.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, I'm thinking of someone else. Yeah, sorry, you're right. Purdue.
So 40 time, 429. So that's a 42.5-inch vertical. And he is, oh my gosh, did I not put down his height and weight? Surely I did. 5'8", 180, and I think that's generous. I am not going to lie to you, dude. I'm pretty sure he checked in at like 5'7" and some change. And now he probably hits that 180. In fact, in an NFL weight room, I don't know. He could even be 188, dude. Like, I know that sounds...
Yeah, is this the dude that's like super jacked?
Oh, he's rocked up, dude. He is so rocked up.
Yeah.
So, again, just keep those numbers in mind.
This is one of the guys that I was like, man, I think that this guy could potentially be a Tyreek Hill.
Exactly. I think he's got a couple inches, or should I say Hill has a couple inches on him, to be fair. But, hey, we're...
Potentially.
Yeah. Again, I think the Hill and the Sproles comps are great. For sure. Moore came to Purdue after a legendary career in Kentucky high school football. He led Trinity High School to 2 consecutive 6A state titles, including a perfect 15-0 season.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
He's
Sorry.
got to set a school record for receptions, still in high school, folks. 104 receiving yards, 1,461 yards, and 16 touchdowns. And the process earned Gatorade Kentucky Player of the Year. Received 20 offers as a 4-star recruit, including from Alabama, before deciding to play for the Boilermakers. He's only 20 years old. It just keeps getting better, I'm telling you, folks. 4th game of sophomore year, he pulled an already ailing hamstring and missed the remainder of 2019 season. So that's why we are looking mainly at his 2018 statistics. Opted out of the 2020 season due to COVID concerns.
Oh, really? Oh, that's right. Yeah. Sorry.
So, this is a theme. I hate to keep coming back to it. In addition to the size theme, there's also a production theme because COVID and injuries, of course, too. As I mentioned, Sproles-esque physique. 2018 production, 114 receptions, 1,258 receiving yards, 11 average, and 14 touchdowns total, including 12 receiving. Just in terms of collegiate statistics and high school statistics, he is an all-star. But as we just touched on, you're going to have to stomach that size and find an offense and a role for him that's going to suit him well, and special teams also. So that's where I'm at. I'm almost done. I still have him put to the fire right now. I'd go Chase, probably still Smith. I'm thinking I'm going to move Rashad Bateman up to 3. Rondale Moore's not far behind. So then Waddle would be 4, thereby making Rondale Moore probably my 5 or my 6.
Oh, I really disagree with you, but okay. I think
I'm done. Go. Tell me why. Tell me what you got.
I think he's more of because of his size, he's gonna be I would be surprised if he would. Yeah, I would be surprised if he was a day one pick. I don't. With that small, I like a guy better. I like a couple of guys lower on this list.
6 overall wide receiver could be a day 2 guy. Second round.
I don't think so. No, I think Rashad Bateman. I think Terrace Marshall. I love
Bateman goes
Dwayne
before
Escridge. I love Dwayne Escridge above him, and I think, yeah, it's personal opinion.
I think
some of it is what.
I think I said 6. I'm thinking out loud, trying to, hammer down on where I'm going to have him.
I think I gave you every single small guy in.
Right. I asked for Rondale Moore, to be fair. To be fair, I'm for Rondale Moore. I guess I'm trying to mention that, don't get me wrong, I definitely have these other guys above Rondale Moore for good reason because, as you said, Rondale Moore could end up being too gadgety. Could be his floor. His floor could be, it's a good example, Josh.
Tavon Austin.
Yeah.
Boom. I think I nailed that on the head right there.
Yep. I think you did.
Yeah.
Now, what if he plays a hybrid? What if he plays more of a halfback? What if he is Darren Sproles? For fantasy purposes, I like that a lot.
He could be.
PPR.
Could be.
We'll see.
I don't know. Let's move on to Garius. Boy. Kadarius Toney. Tony? I don't know. Wide receiver out of Florida. He was one of the reasons why Kyle Trask was so good this past season. He's a senior. We'll call him 6 foot, about 190 pounds. I'm going to say about because it would just kind of depend on what site I saw it at. I saw like 187. I saw 190. I saw 191. So we'll just call it about 190.
Mm-hmm.
He ran on a 4.41 at his pro day, which is not too bad. Obviously, that's unofficial. So do you see a trend with all these receivers yet? 6 foot, sometimes less, sometimes a little bit more. Smaller guys, fast. I mean, I have written here that Toney is a special talent with the ball in his hands. Like he's a real great after the catch guy. And Pro Football Network, to give credit where credit is due, compared him to like a taller Dante Hall. Remember him from back in the day?
X Factor.
Yep. Super electric and everything. And that's mainly because he has this uncanny stop ability. Stops on a dime.
The
I
human
mean,
joystick was his
hits full
nickname.
stride like almost immediately. I mean, his acceleration is off the map.
Mhm.
And because of his acceleration, he can really like bury his speed while he's running a route, which I think is kind of cool. Like he'll start running real fast and he'll kind of slow down again, then he'll take off again to just kind of throw corners and defenders off. The problem with him is that he's not the greatest route runner, that he's not super polished at it, and that sometimes he gives up to like towards the end of a route too.
Mhm.
He's had some problems with durability. He primarily ran from the slot, like majorly ran from the slot. But I'm sorry, the majority of his um, snaps were from the slot. So, and when you have a problem with durability, and you're playing only from the slot, you're going to get banged up a lot. You're not just going to get pushed out of bounds. You're going to be taking some head on collisions too.
For sure.
So, and I mean, like he only had 70 receptions this past season. It was only on 84 targets. So that's a good ratio. Did have 10 touchdowns, almost 1,000 yards. So, I mean, those are good numbers. Those are great. I don't know, man. I mean, it really depends on landing spot for Tooney. Um, like where like how much I really love him in Dynasty. I don't really necessarily like him all that much in a redraft unless
Mhm.
he really hits the like a perfect location. Um I feel like he's just more of a depth wide receiver right now for a Dynasty, which I mean, yeah, I really don't see him as a good uh immediate day one impact
Contributor
on a
early,
team.
you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's maybe you might want to kind of see how he's doing and keep an eye on him like throughout the season, and maybe like sometime midway through the season when he starts making an impact, then in redraft you might want to go out and grab him as a speculative add off waiver wire, especially for like bye weeks and everything. But I think on your dynasty squad, I'm not super thrilled with him, um I don't know, I don't have much else to say. I'm not saying I wouldn't draft him. I'm just saying like it would just be I would really have to love the landing spot, and I would have to really love what I'm hearing about him in like training
Training
camp
camp.
and
Couldn't have
preseason and
said it better
everything.
myself. Yep. And
So,
we're going to have our, this comes up a lot with these guys. Like, we're going to have to see fit and we're going to have to see the rumor mill, if you will, in
and
training
well, and
camp.
that's the thing more so I feel like with pass catchers, so running backs and tight ends than necessarily running backs, is that it's really kind of like, well, how do they fit into the team that drafts them? And it's very team dependent,
Hmm.
You go to say like a Miami, like we mentioned earlier, where there's already a couple pass catchers already ahead of this rookie, maybe not the greatest, but still like he's going to have to battle his way into the pecking order, but to become really fantasy relevant. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I mean, whereas you go to a team like maybe the Jets, you don't have a ton of competition. You have a sophomore and Denzel Mims, a veteran in forgetting his name. The slot guy, Jamison Crowder, and
Thank
that's
you.
about it. So, yeah. Why don't we move on to Rashad Bateman?
All right. Here's where we get a little bit away from the
I'm sorry, wide receiver coming out of Minnesota.
right,
Let's
right.
just.
Minnesota Golden Gophers, team on the
Mhm.
rise, in my opinion, in the recent years. At least offensively, they put up a good show. This is where we start getting
Uh-huh.
away from the little gadget guy a little bit more. Now he was coming in at 6'2", 210, but I think that was well, I know it was embellished. Basically, he actually came in under 6'2", just
I
over
think
6'1", 200
I've seen
pounds.
him. I've seen him always listed at like 6 foot. So.
Yeah, yeah. So there was all I'm saying is there was some discrepancy there with the 6'2", 210 listing. It's more closer to 6'1" and 200 for sure.
Hmm.
Um, Reminds me very much of Allen Robinson. No really weaknesses in his game. Good size,
Oh, okay.
etc. I'm envisioning an Allen Robinson ceiling and a Michael Gallup floor, which is really good. As you can tell, I'm starting to
That's
fall in
not
love with
bad.
this
That's not bad
guy.
at all.
I don't want to kind of fall in love with him just due to kind of defaulting to size, because he deserves more than that. Like, he is a deep threat, like crazy.
Cool.
A 2019 production, 60 catches, 1,219 receiving yards, and that's a 20.1 average, 11
Yeah.
touchdowns. So it's a deep play. But he's got that size, albeit not quite 6'2", 210. I like him at Miami at 18 if they don't go running back there and don't go Chase at 6. Reminds me, oh, that's about all I had on him. Sorry. Yeah,
No, it's
yeah.
cool.
So he's, like I said, he's moving up my board. He's becoming my 3 or 4, depending how you feel about the Alabama kids.
Yeah, I could get down with that. I feel like, if he went, obviously team, not to beat a dead horse, but yeah, obviously situation dependent. Like he's more of a guy than I think Kadarius Toney is, as far as he could come in and be a difference maker right away. You
Yep.
know,
Yep. NFL
um,
ready.
yeah. I mean, even if he's not gonna take over the alpha dog wide receiver kind of role, which
Mm-hmm.
maybe he won't, but what about?
What about
I just
Detroit?
thought of
They
this.
got to have
What
somebody.
about maybe like a Seattle that picks him up? They need some depth in their wide receiver core. I don't know. I don't think they do that in round one, but
Yeah. They've with the 2 contracts they have on Metcalf and just blanked on his name, the fast guy.
DJ Metcalf,
No, the
DK
other one,
Metcalf,
the smaller one. Lockett.
Tyler Lockett.
Thank you.
Lockett's already under contract though.
That's what I'm saying. That both of them just got not DK.
DK
DK.
didn't.
Well, we're just gonna assume he gets his, right? So
He's still a year or two away from it.
it's true, but I'm just saying it's gonna have to go on the books. So I think it would spell the end of Lockett if you got a guy like Rashad Bateman. Not this year, just moving forward.
For
But no,
sure.
he's great. I like him very much.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to Terrace Marshall, my new favorite guy. And he's not the best running back in this class. He's out of
Receiver.
LSU as well. Um, the one thing I will say about him is that it's a little um what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little down on him in the sense that he kind of took over Justin Jefferson's role as a slot guy in LSU this past season, even
Mm-hmm.
though Jamar Chase did not play. But that doesn't mean that he
Right.
can't be a wideout in the NFL. I mean, look at what Justin Jefferson did going into Minnesota. Like they were just like, oh, it's just a slot guy. Oh no, he's not. So I mean, and Terrace Marshall, he's 6'3", 205
Dang.
pounds. Finally, a guy with some size.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. There
know,
you
I
go.
at 205, obviously you want to, and at 6'3", you wanted to see a little bit more meat on his bones there. But I mean, he's just like we mentioned earlier, he was one of the guys that caught he was one of the 3 wide receivers for the Tigers in 2019 that caught more than 10 touchdowns. He's
Insane.
I really like this guy. What I don't understand quite so much is why he's so low. I mean, on people's lists, like he's got a good catch radius. He can play in the slot and out wide. He's got foot quickness and he's decent after the catch toughness. Got good
Good.
ball tracking ability too. The one thing I did have is that his footwork, like, and then his initial footwork, like getting off the line, is a little sloppy and clunky. He doesn't always finish his routes. He doesn't always just play as fast as he could. But some of that could just be, you know, I don't know, just the things that I read too. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
just sometimes those things don't show up in college, but then you click over the NFL and it's you know just snaps, and maybe some of that is just actually wide receiver coaches coaching them up and everything, and
For
getting
sure. And
getting
an
these
NFL
guys
weight
ready and
room,
everything. And along with like Rashad Bateman, this guy could be an immediate NFL impact player. I would definitely take him over I'm saying in a dynasty draft. Take Terrace Marshall over a Kadarius Toney. Like
Agree.
just because of side speed. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even say his speed. It was the unofficial, of course, 4.38 40
Ooh, at
for
6'3",
yeah at 6'3" too.
a little
Like
skinny, but that's enticing.
yeah, yeah. And so I mean, like in a year where there isn't a Jamar Chase or a Devonta Smith or a Jalen Waddle, this guy could be the number one wide receiver off the board.
Mm-hmm.
It would probably be to the Raiders because size, speed.
Yep.
But it's I really like Terrace Marshall. I don't know where he's going to go. I've seen him go in late first in mock drafts. I've seen him go in day 2. It's kind of all over the map. Like I said, I'm not really sure why people are down on him. I'm going to do a little more research for our NFL show, our draft coverage.
Good coverage. I think you've warmed
Oh,
me
well,
up
the
to
one
him a
thing,
bit.
I
Go
did
ahead.
have here,
Mhm.
as like, what if so we mentioned at the top of the show that the Ravens traded their left tackle to the Chiefs for their pick 31.
Mhm.
So the second to last pick of the first round. What if the Ravens got Terrace Marshall here? Big dude, big catch
They need
radius.
more of at least in physical size. They need more of a true one. They're getting a lot of
And
flack
he's
for the
fast
receivers
too.
they have in
So
town.
he's fast too. So I mean, he could
Mhm.
be, and I don't think that Lamar Jackson is the most accurate thrower in the world. So even if he's a little off
Big
the
catch
mark, he's got
radius.
catch
Yeah.
radius, he's got
Mhm.
speed, he's got size. I think it would be great if the Ravens somehow picked him with that pick there,
I like that
or
marriage.
even with their earlier pick as well. But I don't think their earlier pick is going to be that. I think it's going to be replacing that tackle that they just lost. So
Gotcha.
whatever. Who do we got next here? Oh, it's Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore out of Ole
Elijah.
Miss.
Ole Miss. Been quite a few
Ole Miss.
pretty darn good receivers come out of Ole Miss. A little quick list here. Mike Wallace, Laquan Treadwell, not so good. And more recently, A.J. Brown and D.K. Metcalf, whom
Wait,
more played with.
Laquan Treadwell.
Yep. Ole
I thought he
Miss.
was out of Florida State.
Nope. You're thinking of a different player.
That was Christian Ponder. Okay, never mind.
That's a quarterback. Oh my gosh.
Yep. I
Oh,
didn't say
Minnesota.
that they were both receivers. I
Minnesota.
just said
Minnesota.
that's the person I was thinking of.
I couldn't think of the tie-in. The Vikings, right?
Yeah.
So, obviously some great talent there, and then some not so great. Laquan Treadwell kind of missed the mark with a size, speed guy that didn't pan out. Elijah Moore, 40 time 4.35. He's 5'9", 185. Not a little guy.
Ooh, I have him listed as 178.
Dang.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. But good production. Again, well coached at Mississippi. That's kind of where I'm at with him. As far as his size and his speed, I'm gonna default to Terrace Marshall. I'd rather have Bateman. Obviously, the two Alabama guys, even though they're on the small side too. Maybe right around the Rondale Moore area is kind of where I'm gonna have to decide between those two. But that's not where I'm with Elijah Moore.
Okay.
Let me see if I can get some better collegiate stats on him, because that didn't really do
What are
him
you talking about? I
justice.
mean, he had 86 receptions this past season for almost 1,200 yards. I mean,
Yeah, I was
that's
getting the
pretty
impression a
good.
little more possession guy, but he's definitely
Yeah,
got
well,
the
I mean,
speed.
he ran primarily out of the slot, so yeah, that's kind of what he is. I also have written down too that he's tough as hell. I don't remember why I wrote that down, but that's just what
Okay.
I for your people, I just wrote down their stats and then just did a quick little read about him last night,
Yeah, for sure thing.
just so I wasn't completely in the dark on every guy.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever.
No real
I'm not here
return
to contradict
chops.
you. This is
No, you're
just
good.
what
You're
I wrote
good.
down.
Yeah, like you said, 86 catches is nothing to sneeze at in college. That's
I
a
mean,
great result
67 in
in eight
2019 too.
games. In eight
But
games, mind you.
yeah, I mean, the problem with the 67 catches in 2019 was on 115 targets, which, targets is always subjective kind of thing. But, you're only catching about half your targets, maybe more like 60%, I guess, but still.
QB play could be, yeah. He
Yep, could
probably
be that too.
he probably slots into a slot role in the NFL, and
Ha
that's where he'll leave it.
ha, ha ha,
And
ha
but he could be
ha.
a pretty good one. I see a lot of what do you say, Crowder in him
Someone's obviously a dad with that horrible
with
pun.
that dad joke.
Yeah, that's bad.
And on
Let's
that
move on
note,
to Dwayne Eskridge. Dwayne Eskridge. This is another guy that I kind of like to. I mean, I didn't watch really any game film on him, but from everything I read, like this guy reminds me of Tyreek Hill. 5'9", 190 pounds. Actually has size on Tyreek Hill. I think Tyreek Hill was, when I looked it up, it was like 185. So they're roughly,
mm-hmm.
the same size, but still super jacked. He's really, really fast. His 20 plus yards per catch represent that speed right there. He ran a 4.38 his pro day. He because he played against smaller schools, because I'm sorry, he is from Western Michigan, coming out of Western Michigan. So he played against some smaller schools, some less talented cornerbacks. He just blew them away. Like he was, and this is one of the knocks on Eskridge, is that because he is so fast, he wasn't really asked to really run any complex routes or anything. So his coming out of college, his route tree is pretty limited. Not to say that that can't change. It's just one of those things that like he's just his main thing was I run fast in straight lines.
Get behind the defender. Just do your
Yeah,
job.
exactly. And that's all he really had to do, like he didn't have to do anything more than that. But if you got the ball in his hand, someone tried to replicate what the Chiefs are doing with Tyreek Hill with
Right.
Eskridge. I mean, obviously you have to execute it properly. But if someone wanted to try and do that, yeah, I mean, yeah, his problem is he doesn't have a lot of production in college, but a lot of that is also because, smaller school, probably not a very good program anyways. I don't am I saying that Escridge is going to go in the first round? Nah, probably more like I'm guessing more like late round 2, round 3 in the NFL draft.
Mm-hmm.
And he's more of a later round dynasty pick at best, but I would definitely maybe try and hone in on him more in dynasty than maybe some of these other guys, just because there is more upside. I think there's more upside to him than maybe even Elijah Moore. Maybe more, you know, just saying.
From an athletic
Just saying.
perspective, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Other than redraft, nah, I'm not touching them. I'm not touching any of these guys.
Well, we're in that
redraft.
territory now. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe my guy that we're gonna see if we have time to get to. Let's see here. We're at about half hour after when I started hitting that, and let's do your mystery wide receiver. I don't remember who it is.
I've got a little bit on Josh Palmer here. University of Tennessee wide receiver, 6'2", 210, right in that same ballpark again.
Nice.
Bad quarterback play. He had a head coach change, so his stats are real underwhelming.
All over the map.
They're just kind of okay for 3 years, if memory serves here. He was a 4-year senior, so that's to be noted. Still only 21
does that mean that he spent 4 years as a senior?
Yes, as a senior citizen. As soon as he got on campus, he was like, "I'm too old for this." No, I'm just kidding. So he played.
He's not Danny Glover. I mean, come on.
He played all 4 years, but his freshman season was almost nothing. 99 for career, 99 receptions, 1,514 yards, an average of 15.3, 7 touchdowns. 7 touchdowns isn't so great, but again, I think that average. And you're talking 3 years, that 99 receptions was broken up. It was like 30-ish a year, 30 to 40 a year. Real bad quarterback play and had to go through a head coach change. So I just think he's a guy you're going to look at traits at this point in the draft. 4.5 isn't awful for a 6'2", 210 guy. That's a 4.5 40 time. So, I like what I see there in terms of depth at receiver. Again, not going to be a guy we're looking to contribute in dynasty or fantasy right away, but could be a depth piece for an NFL team and your dynasty roster. Josh
Sometimes Palmer. I love these NFL comparisons. So I'm looking at PFF right now about him, and it says NFL player comparison: a less physical Jordy Nelson. And like, ooh.
Jordy Nelson was physical after the run, that's for sure, and he was fast too.
Yeah. I mean, no, and this guy's not slow by any mean. It's just, I mean, what I'm seeing here is that he's just not the.
Yeah,
I mean, he doesn't have a lot of moves when he's running his routes. It's just maybe do a little like a quick little juke and then he goes. It's just there's no he doesn't have a gadget. A thing like. To give an example, like Devonta Adams, his footwork is just elite level, and that's how he's beating people off the line or something like that.
Player Profiler has his best comparable players, Jacoby Jones, with a 4.52 40. I don't know if I agree with that. Remember Jacoby Jones, returner?
Yeah.
Speed, skinny, but had speed for days.
Yeah.
Anyway,
okie dokie. So that's him. We'll do our last wide receiver here because we're doing okay on time actually.
Good.
This episode might run a little long by the time we get it all said and done, but that's okay. It's our show, right? We can do what we want, right? We don't got a boss. We don't got a boss.
Mm-mm.
I mean, you have a wife, so you do, but I don't have a wife, so I don't got a boss.
Well said. Love you,
um,
honey.
so our last wide receiver we're going to talk about here is Diane Brown. He is out of North Carolina, and it's another wide receiver that's a little skinny at 6'1" and 189 pounds. But I mean, it's just a thing in this draft, and you know what? Maybe that's just how like wide receivers are going to be moving
Well, I
forward.
think there's something to be said. You go, how far are we into it now? Probably a good decade or so since this spread has spread into college offenses and then subsequently spread into the NFL.
Hmm.
You start these high schools. One of the reasons they started spreading things out is because they had smaller dudes. They got smaller dudes into space. Let's go 3 or 4 wide instead of 2 wide. Less tight ends, less fullback. So I'm just saying now that these high school kids have gotten into the college ranks and started playing, you're just seeing the prototype change a little bit. And I also think
Yep.
you can look at the NFL and guys like Odell Beckham Jr., Ridley recently, Calvin Ridley,
Hmm.
that is.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's all I've got on that.
Yeah. All right. I mean, Diami Brown. I mean, he's got good reach. He's good with contested catches. Um, he's got some good speed on deep routes. He only ran a 4.46, but I mean, dude, it's still a 4.4 time. Like
Mm-hmm.
whatever. The problem is that he's been on the slow side for his intermediate routes. Doesn't have the greatest moves to shake cornerbacks. He's not the strongest blocker. But I mean, if you're a wide receiver, you're not blocking all that
Unless you play for
much.
the Ravens.
But yeah, well, unless you play for the Ravens, and he ran a pretty limited route tree in college. It's just, and he played for North Carolina, so it's not like he was playing with the most elite quarterbacks either. So his numbers don't look all that great. But I mean, he does combine for over 2,000 yards the past 2 seasons, so that's
Dang.
not bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's 2019 and 2020 put together to
I mean,
over
that's
2,000
production.
yards,
That's
not
yeah.
2,000 each. And over 50 catches in both those games too. Over 20 yards per catch in both of those seasons. That's not bad at all, man. I mean, he's good. I mean, it's just like a lot of these other guys here. Skinny, got a little bit of size, but skinny.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So yeah, that's all our wide receivers that we're gonna do. Oh boy. Yeah, like strap yourselves in, folks. Put your seatbelt on because this is going to happen here. Chris is going to talk about Kyle Pitts, and I hope I've given him enough time to do so. I really, really hope so.
I think I kept it concise.
Yeah, okay.
So I think the first thing mentioned.
So get
Go
your
ahead,
umbrellas and your ponchos out because it's gonna start. He's gonna start gushing.
I'm gonna start gushing. I think the important thing, first of all, Kyle Pitts, tight end, University of Florida, 6'6", 250. I don't have his 40 time written down, but I'll look into that in a second.
Keep going. I'll look it up.
Don't look at him as a tight end for fantasy and for NFL draft purposes. Although he's going to keep that classification. Think more of a Keller Winslow Sr. type of ceiling. Now, I bet there's probably a few kids out there who don't recall who, when they hear Keller Winslow, they think of Keller Winslow Jr., the guy that went kind of crazy a few years back. Had a couple real productive years, played for Cleveland, and a couple other,
The Bucks.
like Seattle. I'm sorry, who? Bucks.
Didn't he play for the Bucks, or is that?
Yeah, he actually had a little bit of a kind of revamped his career with the Bucks briefly, and then it went badly again. I don't know his issues. It's off the field. We'll just leave it at that. He has been comped to Megatron, and particularly in the red zone. He had 12 touchdowns in 2021. In fantasy terms, destination is important in terms of a team willing to deploy him properly. I think too often we fall in, and this is the negative side of things. This is me not gushing about Pitts. I think too often we fall in love with assuming rational coaching, assuming the coach is going to do the rational, no-brainer thing and build his offense around Kyle Pitts, or okay, maybe Rondale's more a bad example, but tailor some of your offense around Rondale Moore. Use Devonta Smith's strengths. And sometimes that just doesn't happen. And we end up with these Tariq Cohens and these gadgety guys, these Tyvon,
okay, so
Austin.
I think what you're getting at here is that there's guys like Mike Gesicki, who's an athletic freak, but yet he's not really utilized all that much in Miami, that sort of thing. Is that what you're getting at here?
Yes, exactly. Definitely could use more.
In the sense that, and this happens a lot with tight ends, is that
around.
they could be the greatest tight end on the planet, but sometimes you'd never know that because their coaches don't. I mean, no one's Mike Martz anymore, where they refuse to use a tight
Right.
end.
Yeah, that was odd.
But it's tight ends, and this is why sometimes the tight ends just whiff because they're just not getting utilized.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
think of OJ Howard and David Njoku as well. Like,
Perfect
oh,
examples.
amazing physical talents and great college production and everything, and they're barely
They're
used.
mired in mediocrity and
Yeah, or
crappy
they just
stats.
have there's a lot going on around them too, that there's just a lot of other pass catchers, so they're never really like hyper focused. Whereas like Travis Kelsey or George Kittle, they're part of that offense.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, so is Pitts going to go to a place where he's going to be part of that offense?
Exactly. Well said. That's exactly what I mean. So that's my concern. So that's why.
By the way,
Yep.
sorry to interrupt.
Mhm.
444 40.
Thank you.
A lot of fours.
I knew that actually. Off the top of my head now that you say it, which is amazing, folks. 444 at 6'6", 250. Are you serious? That's where the
Yeah.
Megatron comps come in.
Oh yeah.
As me and
Love
Josh
me some
just touched
Megatron.
on, don't be afraid to line him up in the slot. Don't be afraid to line him up out wide in the red zone. Throw it up to him. Let him get it. In terms of fantasy, okay, first let's talk redraft. Positional advantage. This guy is instantly, let's say, probably again, depending on landing spot, but probably the third or fourth tight end off the board. Like, it's that bad. Like, he's gonna be a top 12 tight end in redraft.
You're talking about in redraft leagues in fantasy football. He'll be the third or fourth. Sorry, you made it sound like he was going third or fourth tight end
In the NFL draft.
this
No,
NFL draft.
in
Yeah.
redraft, fantasy drafts coming up this August, he's going to be probably the third or fourth tight end off the board because
I'm going to disagree with you, but not. Like if you did that, I'd be like, okay, fine, I guess.
Who's the Baltimore kid? Right about that. I mean, isn't he consensus?
Lamar Jackson?
No, the tight end.
Mark Andrews.
Andrews. Right at that breaking point. I feel like you missed out on Kittle and Kelsey. You're gonna wait, and if you're gonna wait, I don't know. I like the upside of this kid. Now in Dynasty, that's more important because we're talking rookies here.
Yeah, where would you take him in Dynasty? Since we're fantasy football, what are you looking at in Dynasty? Would you? I mean, I guess depending on situation and landing spot and everything, go Najee Harris and maybe potentially with the right landing spot, Travis Etienne, and then maybe Chase and then Pitts, or Pitts then Chase. Say all these guys land where you want them to land.
It's 3 or 4. It's 3 or 4. I still have Najee Harris ahead of him because Dynasty and because running backs matter so darn much.
Of course.
And he should be productive. I have Chase above him because I think he's just that good of a player, and wide receivers tend to play longer in the NFL, so those are very important in Dynasty. But right there at that 3 and 4, when you come to the Travis Etiennes and the Waddles of the world, I got to go Pitts. I got to go that positional advantage. And you're talking to a guy who manages Kittle in Dynasty. I have no problem taking him with Kittle on my roster and starting 2 tight ends.
Well, I mean that you bring up a good point there too, is that like, say you're somewhere in that range, so say you have, for whatever reason, have the chance to draft Pitts on a dynasty team, but you already have, say, a Kittle or a Kelsey. I mean, definitely we have a Kelsey, because who knows how many more years you're going to get out of him. But at the same time too, what if, and you don't really play Pitts at all this season, but you have Kittle or Kelsey that are going to give you, usually top 5 production in tight ends from those two, barring injury. And then like you trade one of them even halfway through the season when Pitt starts to take off, or even after this season, then you already have your next tight end of the next 10 years or whatever.
And to be fair, Kittle's been banged up a bit lately.
He has. He has. We're not going like we said when we talked about him in the Remember When episode a few weeks ago, that we're not calling him, labeling injury prone yet, but he's getting on the radar of that.
Right. And
that would be Kittle.
As a Kittle manager, if I were at 3, 4, 5 in that draft area, because I'm set at wide receiver, I'd really rather go running back. That's how strong I feel about Pitts. Like, I really would rather go running back, folks, but I just don't think you can pass up this kind of talent.
Well, it's also not the strongest running back class either, like we covered last week. It's outside
That's what
of
it comes down to for me.
Yeah, well, I
Exactly.
mean, like you can. I mean, so say Najee Harris goes to the Dolphins, or I guess at least in my personal opinion, to a lesser extent, Pittsburgh, and then Travis Etienne, which I think a great landing spot for him would be the Jets. A great landing spot for Etienne. I mean, yeah, I'm still going Jamar Chase, and then probably Devonta Smith, but then Pitts, yeah,
Yeah. So it
yeah,
sounds like
I
we're
don't
off
know.
by one or two.
Yeah,
That's
no,
it.
no, we're in the same neighborhood for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
We're not maybe not living in the same house, but we're in the same neighborhood.
So yeah, that's mostly what I have. The positional advantage, which we touched on, dynasty top 3 or 4, maybe 5 pick, as me and Josh just discussed. Yeah, yeah, I love the dude. I can't wait to see him play, man. I'm so excited about this.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our last tight end here because that didn't go that long. I think you did a good
Pretty
job
good,
there.
pretty good,
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Pat on the back for
pretty
you.
pretty
Pretty good.
good. And I've got one more if we have more room for another tight end.
Okay, let's see how we do after this. My second tight end here is Pat Fryermuth, which is I guess the second best tight end in this draft from what everything that I've read at least. He's out of Penn State. He's 6'5", 251. And I love this quote, and I can't cite where this quote came from because I read it off of one site that was quoting somewhere else that didn't actually cite the reference there. So I will just make the quote, and that I didn't actually come up with it. I read it on the internet somewhere. Okay, so it goes, the baby Gronk moniker isn't unwarranted for Pat Fryermuth. He's a rare tight end who can impose his will as a blocker or a receiver. Love it. Love it. That's great. And he has been described as a poor man's Gronk. I believe PFF did that. But the quote, like I said, I don't know exactly where it came from. He's got size, strength, great contested catchability. He's just not very fast, and he's not the greatest blocker in the world. It's not that he's terrible at it. It's just one of his knocks is that he is not an elite blocking tight end. Like I said, he's not very fast, and he at times has some mental focus issues. Just a few drops here and there and whatever. I mean, if you're looking for a big tight end, a big strong tight end to, just kind of go over the middle and knock people around, Fryermuth's your dude. I mean, I guess you
Some
could
teams
maybe
covet that physical presence at tight end more than they do
an athletic
Kelsey or
one,
a
yes,
Pitts type. Exactly.
or like a Noah Fant or something. Like that's a
Perfect example. Yep.
athletic tight end that doesn't do a lot of blocking. Well, Pat Fryermuth is kind of more on the other end of that spectrum of the old school tight end of, yep, bit of a mauler, but blocking you can usually improve people's blocking skills. Not
For
maybe not
sure.
every running back as far as pass
Technique can be
blocking,
improved
but
for sure.
yeah, blocking off the line, yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've seen him consistently be the second tight end taken off the board, sometimes in
Yep.
the second, sometimes in
Yep.
the third, in some mock drafts. But those are mock drafts, and who knows? He could easily slide a lot further too. It's not a very good
It's not a premium
year.
position either. Again,
Yeah, and it's not a very good year for tight end
no,
in this
it's
upcoming
what.
NFL
Yeah,
draft.
it's the
So
definition of top heavy. Yeah,
yeah, let's call it a wrap. How about
sounds
that?
good. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that your next tight end is going to be that much of a difference maker?
I mean, I could go real
Why
quick.
don't you why don't you bring why don't you bring up his name real quick?
Brevin Jordan, 6'3",
Mm-hmm.
245, ran a 4.69 40. Great production, except that he is injury prone. 105 receptions, 1,358 receiving yards, 13 touchdowns, but that was spread over 3 seasons where he never completed a full season. He's only 20, so that's a plus. Ankle injury in 2020, very injury prone career. Would have been a first round talent. Now he'll be lucky to go in the second. So more on the
And
receiving
remind me
side of
where he's
things
out
at
of too.
6'3", 245.
Where does he play? Play? Who did he play for in school?
I don't know.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. I was just like, I don't
I'm
remember.
surprised I didn't have it.
Why don't you tell me where he went to school?
I shall. I can't believe I don't have that written
While
down.
Chris looks that up, I will do a little bit of cleanup here.
Miami, the other Florida school. I knew that. The other Florida school known for cultivating tight
right.
ends.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
U.
Cool. Yes, the U. Anyways, So like we mentioned at the top of the show, Chris and I will be together for our live stream on Thursday. We will be doing a bit of a draft watching party, and we'll give some takes on draft picks and everything like that. And if you are like me and don't really like to watch the NFL draft, this is a great thing to do, because then you have something to, other than those talking heads, talk about nonsense
Right.
for
Yeah, I'd say that's an important
get the
distinction for
15
myself.
minutes in
I
between
love
picks
watching the draft. I just don't like the coverage that I get from the major
on the draft
entities.
cover.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Sorry, ESPN, but yeah, get some better guys or do something else. Like I feel like draft parties are like this. I know I was listening to a different fantasy football podcast earlier today, just because I hadn't listened to it in forever. And apparently that person, I'm not going to give him a bump, but that person is also doing one too. And I was like, oh, you copycat. We came up with that first.
Yeah, it's going to be a theme, especially with the remote and the pandemic stuff this year. But there's other shows, ancillary shows, obviously including ours, that can give you a better draft coverage than those big
Anyway,
guys.
so you can check us out up there on the twitch.tv/amazing fantasy football Thursday. I believe the draft starts at 7. We'll probably start a couple minutes beforehand.
For sure.
Just to say what's up and everything. And I'm sure some of our online friends will be tuning in and everything. Until then, though, you can always check us out at Fantasy7 on Twitter. I believe Chris is kind of taking that over a little bit. Or you can email us amazingffb@gmail.com. If you're watching us in YouTube format, you can always check us out in podcast format, where you can check us out in whatever your podcast platform is. Don't get it from your podcast dealer behind the local Burger King. Not a good place to get podcasts. If you can, rate and review us wherever possible. Give us a sub on YouTube. If you are listening in podcast format, of course, I just mentioned, you can check us out on YouTube. Just search for Amazing Fantasy Football. We're there. Give us a like, a sub, whatevs. Leave us some comments. I check the comments usually weekly and try and comment back when people do. Until then, we will be in person on Thursday. Like I said, I just want to keep reiterating that Thursday, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Mountain, 5 o'clock Pacific.
Better than I could have done that.
4 o'clock Alaskan, 3 o'clock Hawaiian and Aleutian time. And that's about as far as I'm going to go with time zones. So until then, everyone, have a goodbye and stay safe, and keep wearing your masks and get your vaccine if possible. I believe everyone is now eligible for, at least in the majority of the country. Those 16 and above, of course.
Right.
If you're below 16, well, thanks for listening. And you'll get vaccinated eventually. We haven't forgotten about you. So have a good bye, everybody.
Later, y'all.